the Japanese and Korean term mu or Chinese wa meaning not have. Without is a key word in Buddhism, especially the Chan and Zen traditions. The Chinese word wasi not. Nothing was borrowed by East Asian languages, particularly the Sino-Xenic CJKV languages of Chinese, Japanese, Korean, and Vietnamese. Pronunciations. The modern standard Chinese pronunciation wasi historically derives from Middle Chinese mju, Late Han Chinese mu, and reconstructed Old Chinese ma. Other varieties of Chinese have differing pronunciations of si. Compare Cantonese mo for or mo. And Minnan IPA, Bo microampere yen and B unregistered trademark E microampere yen. The common Chinese word wasi was adopted in the Sino-Japanese, Sino-Korean, and Sino-Vietnamese vocabularies. The Japanese kanji si has oniomi readings of mu or bu, and a kurenaomi of na. The Korean hanja si is read mu. The Vietnamese Han Viet character si is pronounced van or ma. Meanings. Some English translation equivalents of wa or mu si are, no, not, nothing, or without, nothing, not, nothingness, is not, has not, not any, 1, non-existence. Non-being. Not having. A lack of, without. 2, a negative. 3, cause to be non-existent. 4, impossible. Lacking reason or cause. 5, pure human awareness, prior to experience or knowledge. This meaning is used especially by the Chan school. 6, the original non-being from which being is produced in the Dao Jing. In modern Chinese, Japanese and Korean it is commonly used in combination words as a prefix to indicate the absence of something, for example, Chinese, si. Pinyin, waxia n/musen/musian for wireless. In classical Chinese, it is an impersonal existential verb meaning not have. The same character is also used in classical Chinese as prohibitive particle, though in this case it is more properly written Chinese. Pinyin, wak. Etymology. Old Chinese ma si is cognate with the Proto-Tibeto-Burman ma not. This reconstructed root is widely represented in Tibeto-Burman languages, for instance, ma means not in both written Tibetan and written Burmese. Characters. In traditional Chinese character classification, the uncommon class of phonetic loan characters involved borrowing the character for one word to write another nearly homophonous word. For instance, the character a paragraph originally depicted a G winnowing basket, and scribes used it as a graphic loan for key a paragraph he, she, it, which resulted in a new character GC registered trademark to specify the basket. The character wu si originally meant dance, and was later used as a graphic loan for wu not. The earliest graphs for si pictured a person with outstretched arms holding something and represented the word wu dance. Dancer. After wu si dance was borrowed as a loan for wu not. Without, the original meaning was elucidated with the e opposite feet at the bottom of wu e dance. The text of the Mu Koan, The Gateless Gate, which is a 13th century collection of Chan or Zen koans, uses the word wu or mu in its title and first koan case. Chinese Chan calls the word mu si the gate to enlightenment. The Japanese Rinzai school classifies the mu koan as hoshin si unregistered trademark a foreign resolve to attain enlightenment, that is, appropriate for beginners seeking Kensha to see the Buddha nature. Case 1 of the Gateless Gate reads as follows. The koan originally comes from the Tsortso Tsenji Chanchi Yulu, the recorded sayings of Zen Master Joshu, Koan 132, the Book of Serenity Chinese, a 3/4 Oyo squared. Pinyin, Ca cubed Ngra cubed Ngla to the first, also known as the Book of Equanimity or more formally the Hector cubed Ngzha Kawen Sha Gaiken Ngla to the first Chinese, a registered trademark E unregistered trademark Caio, has a longer version of this koan, which adds the following to the start of the version given in the Tsortso Tsenji Chanchi Yulu. Origins. In the original text, the question is used as a conventional beginning to a question and answer exchange. The reference is to the Nirvana Sutra which says for example, in this light, the undisclosed store of the Tathagata is proclaimed, All beings have the Buddha nature. Koan 363 in the Tsortso Tsenji Chanchi Yulu shares the same beginning question. Interpretations. This koan is one of several traditionally used by Rinzai school to initiate students into Zen study, and interpretations of it vary widely. Yasutani Haku, one of the Sanbo Kyojin, maintained that the koan is not about whether a dog does or does not have a Buddha nature because everything is Buddha nature, and either a positive or negative answer is absurd because there is no particular thing called Buddha nature. One-sided interpretation. The Japanese scholar Irie Yoshitaka made the following comment on the two versions of the koan. I have held doubts for some time even with regard to the way the so-called Chaochu's word no has been previously dealt with. To the question, does a dog have the Buddha nature? On the one hand, monk Chaochu replied affirmatively, but on the other hand he replied negatively. However, Zen adherents in Japan have rendered the koan exclusively in terms of his negative response, and completely ignored the affirmative one. Moreover, it has been the custom from the outset to reject the affirmative response as superficial compared to the negative one. It seems that the Wu Men Kuan is responsible for this peculiarity. A similar critique has been given by Stephen Heine. The common approach espoused emphasizes a particular understanding of the role of the koan based on the a-o head word or a critical phrase method developed by the prominent 12th century Chinese master, Dai. This approach takes the a-o response in a non-literal way to express a transcendental negation that becomes the topic of an intensive contemplative experience, during which any and all thoughts or uses of reason and words are to be cut off and discarded for good rather than investigated for their expressive nuances and ramifications. Yet, historical studies demonstrate quite persuasively that an overemphasis on this single approach to one version of the koan is somewhat misleading. On asking the question, the term is often used or translated to mean that the question itself must be unasked. No answer can exist in the terms provided. Tsortso's answer, which literally means that dogs do not have Buddha nature, has been interpreted by Robert Psig and Douglas Hofstadter to mean that such categorical thinking is a delusion, that yes and no are both correct and incorrect. In popular culture, in Robert M. Psig's 1974 novel Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, mu is translated as no thing, saying that it meant unask the question. He offered the example of a computer circuit using the binary numeral system, in effect using mu to represent high impedance. For example, it stated over and over again that computer circuits exhibit only two states, a voltage for 1, and a voltage for 0. That's silly. Any computer electronics technician knows otherwise. Try to find a voltage representing 1 or 0 when the power is off. The circuits are in a micron state. The word features prominently with a similar meaning in Douglas Hofstadter's 1979 book, Gar Paragraph Del, Escher, Bach. It is used fancifully in discussions of symbolic logic, particularly Gar Paragraph Del's incompleteness theorems, to indicate a question whose answer is to unask the question, indicate the question is fundamentally flawed, or reject the premise that a dualistic answer can or will be given. Mu may be used similarly to na, or not applicable, a term often used to indicate the question cannot be answered because the conditions of the question do not match the reality. A layperson's example of this concept is often invoked by the loaded question, "Have you stopped beating your wife?" To which mu would be the only respectable response. Because of this meaning, programming language Perl 6 uses mu for the root of its type hierarchy. See also, Ma, many-valued logic, not even wrong, wronger than wrong, Wu Wei, a term in Chinese philosophy, Wu Ot ceremony, references. Sources, Day, Stacy B. Manor Mu, The Cradle of Becoming and Unbecoming, Desiderata for Human Science. New York, International Foundation for Biosocial Development and Human Health. ISBN A0-934314-00-4. OCLCA 45243608. External links, 4 Myths about Zen Buddhism. Unregistered trademark S. Mu Koan, Stephen Heine, The Koan Mu, John Tarrant.